The arrival. The transport ship shuddered as it docked with Nexus 9, the infamous maximum security prison carved into the heart of a lifeless asteroid. Colonel Sarah Vega felt the familiar lurch in her stomach, but this time it wasn't from the docking sequence. For the first time in her decorated 20-year career with the Galactic Peacekeeping Force, she was entering a prison not as an officer, but as an inmate. Sarah's wrists chafed against the energy cuffs binding her hands. She stood tall, her military bearing evident despite the prison jumpsuit that had replaced her uniform. The transport's hold was filled with a motley assortment of alien criminals, each more dangerous than the last. A Zentarian with rippling blue skin glared at her with all four of its eyes, mandibles clicking in anticipation. Sarah met its gaze unflinchingly. "End of the line, convicts," barked a guard, his voice distorted through the speaker of his environment suit. The airlock hissed open, revealing a sterile white corridor stretching into the bowels of the asteroid. As Sarah stepped into Nexus 9, the reality of her situation hit her like a plasma blast to the chest. How had it come to this? Just a week ago, she'd been leading an elite squadron on a routine patrol of the Outer Rim. Now she was being marched alongside the galaxy's worst offenders, framed for a crime she didn't commit. The prisoners were herded through a series of checkpoints, each more secure than the last. Sarah's tactical mind couldn't help but analyze the defenses. Energy barriers, automated turrets, and guards armed with weapons she'd never seen before. Escape seemed impossible, but Sarah had overcome impossible odds before. At the final checkpoint, a holographic display flickered to life, revealing the face of Warden Kellix. His avian features were sharp, beak-like nose and predatory eyes, giving him the appearance of a bird of prey. "Welcome to Nexus 9. Kellix's voice oozed false warmth. "You are now property of the Galactic Corrections Corporation. Rehabilitation is our goal. Cooperation is your salvation." His eyes locked onto Sarah. "Some of you may think your old lives, your old titles, mean something here. They don't. You're all equal now, equally worthless." Sarah's jaw clenched, but she kept her face impassive. She wouldn't give Kellix the satisfaction of seeing her react. The prisoners were split into groups. Sarah found herself being led down a narrow corridor, the walls pulsing with an eerie bioluminescent light. The guard behind her prodded her forward with the butt of his rifle. "Keep moving, 9-3-7, he growled, using her new inmate designation. The cell block they entered was unlike anything Sarah had seen in her years of service. Instead of traditional cells, there were transparent cubes suspended in a vast, open chamber. Each cube housed a different alien species, the environments within tailored to their specific needs. Sarah was marched to an empty cube. The front slid open with a soft hiss, and she was shoved inside. The moment she crossed the threshold, the gravity shifted, becoming Earth normal. The air took on a familiar crispness that reminded her of autumn mornings back home. "Your new home, 9-3-7, the guard sneered. "Get comfy. You'll be here a while." As the front of the cube sealed shut, Sarah took in her surroundings. The space was small but efficiently designed. A bed, a sanitation unit, and a small desk were built into the walls. A window looked out into the vast chamber beyond, giving her a view of her fellow inmates. To her left was a cube filled with a shimmering gelatinous substance. Within it, a morphine shapeshifter pulsed and writhed. To her right, a pyroclast smoldered in an environment of pure plasma, its rocky skin glowing with internal fire. Sarah sat on the edge of the bed, her mind racing. She knew she'd been set up, but by whom? And why? Her last mission had been routine, or so she'd thought. But then there was the mysterious transmission, the ambush, and suddenly she was being accused of treason, of selling galactic peacekeeping secrets to the highest bidder. A commotion in the cell block drew her attention. A new prisoner was being brought in, but this one was different. It was massive, easily 3 meters tall, with 6 arms and a carapace that shimmered with an oily iridescence. Sarah recognized the species, a Vexcar, one of the most feared warrior races in the galaxy. The guards were struggling to control it, energy prods crackling as they tried to subdue the creature. But the Vexcar seemed almost amused by their efforts. With a casual swipe of one of its arms, it sent a guard flying across the chamber. Alarms blared, and Sarah watched as a squad of heavily armored guards rushed in. They surrounded the Vexcar, weapons raised. For a moment, it looked like a bloodbath was imminent. Then, a voice cut through the chaos. "Stand down." Warden Kellic strode into view, flanked by 2 bodyguards. He approached the Vexcar without fear, a small device in his hand. "I'd hoped we wouldn't have to do this, Grixthar," Kellic said, his voice carrying across the chamber. "But you leave me no choice." He activated the device. The Vexcar let out a bone-chilling shriek, its body convulsing as if in agony. After a few seconds, it collapsed to the ground, subdued but still conscious. Kellic turned, addressing the entire cell block. "Let this be a lesson to all of you. Cooperation is not optional in Nexus 9. It is your only path to survival." His eyes found Sarah again, and a cold smile played across his beak-like features. "Some of you may think you're special, that the rules don't apply to you. I assure you they do. In fact, for some of you, they apply even more strictly." As Kellic turned to leave, Sarah's mind was whirling. The warden's words, the way he'd singled her out, it all pointed to something bigger at play. This wasn't just about her supposed crimes. There was something else going on in Nexus 9, something hidden beneath the surface. Sarah lay back on her bed, staring at the ceiling of her cube. She was a soldier, trained to assess situations and formulate strategies. Right now, her strategy was simple: observe, gather information, and stay alive. Someone had gone to great lengths to put her here, and she was determined to find out why. As the lights in the cell block dimmed, signaling the start of the sleep cycle, Sarah closed her eyes. But sleep wouldn't come easily. In the quiet of her cell, she could hear the myriad sounds of the alien prisoners around her, the bubbling of the morphine, the crackling of the pyroclast, and somewhere in the distance, the low, menacing growl of the Vexcar. "Welcome to Nexus 9, she thought grimly. Let the games begin. Alien alliances. The harsh buzz of the wake-up alarm jolted Sarah from her fitful sleep. As the lights in her cube slowly brightened, simulating dawn, she sat up, her military instincts kicking in despite her surroundings. It had been a week since her arrival at Nexus 9, and she was still adjusting to the bizarre rhythm of life in this alien prison. As she performed her morning exercises, a routine she stubbornly maintained, Sarah observed her fellow inmates. The morphine in the cube to her left had taken on a new form overnight, its gelatinous body now resembling a complex, multidimensional fractal. To her right, the pyroclast smoldered quietly, its rocky skin glowing with a dull red heat. A movement caught her eye. In the cube directly across from hers, a new inmate had arrived during the night cycle. It was a chrysali, an insectoid species known for their brilliant minds and photographic memories. The creature's iridescent wings fluttered nervously as it took in its new surroundings. Sarah's observations were interrupted by the arrival of the meal drones. Small, spherical robots hovered into the cell block, distributing nutrient packets tailored to each species' dietary needs. As Sarah's drone approached, she noticed something odd, a small scratch on its otherwise pristine surface, forming a pattern that looked almost like "pissed human." A voice hissed, barely audible. Sarah froze, her eyes darting around. The voice seemed to be coming from the drone itself. "Don't react," the voice continued. "We've hacked this drone. Listen carefully. There's more going on here than you know. If you want answers, be ready. Opportunity comes to those who wait." Before Sarah could process this, the drone deposited her nutrient packet and zipped away. She stared at the bland, gelatinous cube that was her breakfast, mind racing. Who was behind the message? And what did they mean by opportunity? Her pondering was cut short by a commotion in the cell block. The Vexcar, Grixthar, was being escorted back to its cube after what Sarah assumed was a period in solitary confinement. The massive alien's carapace was dulled, its movements sluggish. Whatever Kellex had done to it had clearly taken a toll. As Grixthar passed Sarah's cube, one of its eyes swiveled towards her. There was an intelligence there, a calculating look that belied the creature's brutish appearance. Sarah met its gaze steadily, neither challenging nor submitting. After a moment, Grixthar gave what might have been a nod of acknowledgement before being shoved into its cube. The rest of the day passed in the monotonous routine that Sarah had come to expect from Nexus 9. Exercise period in the gravity-controlled common area, followed by mandatory rehabilitation sessions. Thinly veiled propaganda broadcasts extolling the virtues of the Galactic Corrections Corporation. It was during one of these sessions that things took an unexpected turn. The holoprojector flickered, the image of the smiling GCC spokesperson replaced by static. Then, a new image appeared, a map of Nexus 9, showing areas Sarah had never seen before. Hidden levels, restricted sectors, all flashing by in rapid succession. The image vanished as quickly as it had appeared, replaced by the regular broadcast. Sarah glanced around. Most of the inmates seemed oblivious, lulled into apathy by the monotonous propaganda. But a few, the Chrysali, Grixthar, and a handful of others, were alert, their eyes darting around suspiciously. As they were herded back to their cubes, Sarah's mind was whirling. The drone, the map, someone was trying to send a message. But who? And why? Her questions were answered sooner than she expected. As the lights dimmed for the night cycle, a soft tapping sound caught her attention. It was coming from the wall she shared with the pyroclast's cube. Sarah pressed her ear against the wall, feeling the heat radiating through. The tapping resolved into a pattern, Morse code, an ancient Earth communication method. Sarah's eyes widened as she deciphered the message. Colon LVGA. Allies ready. Rio tomorrow. Be prepared. Sarah's heart raced. A riot. It was insane, suicide even. But it was also an opportunity, perhaps her only chance to find out why she'd been sent here. As if on cue, a low, subsonic hum began to emanate from Grixthar's cube. It was barely perceptible, but Sarah felt it in her bones. One by one, other inmates began to respond. The Morphine's cube rippled in a complex pattern. The Chrysali's wings flashed in a silent light show. They were communicating, Sarah realized, planning. And somehow she was at the center of it all. As the night wore on, Sarah lay awake, her mind working furiously. She had no illusions about her fellow inmates. They were dangerous criminals, each with their own agenda. But right now, they were also her best chance at uncovering the truth and clearing her name. Tomorrow would bring chaos, violence, and perhaps a shot at freedom. Sarah closed her eyes, steadying her breathing. Whatever happened, she would be ready. The sound of shattering glass jolted Sarah awake. Alarms blared as the cell block erupted into chaos. Through the transparent wall of her cube, she saw Grixthar, somehow free of its restraints, smashing through the other cubes with its massive arms. The pyroclast burst from its containment in a gout of flame, while the morphine oozed through microscopic cracks in its cube, reforming into a nightmarish amalgamation of tentacles and teeth. The Chrysali buzzed overhead, its wings a blur as it dodged energy blasts from the frantically responding guards. Sarah's own cube suddenly depressurized, the front wall sliding open. She didn't hesitate, rolling out and immediately dropping into a defensive stance. A guard rushed at her, stun baton raised, but years of combat training took over. Sarah ducked under his swing, grabbed his arm, and used his momentum to flip him over her shoulder. The guard's head cracked against the floor, and he lay still. Impressive human, rumbled a voice behind her. Sarah spun to see Grixthar looming over her, its carapace gleaming with reflected emergency lights. But this is no time for finesse. We must move quickly. Before Sarah could respond, a bolt of plasma sizzled between them. The riot had devolved into a full-scale battle, with guards pouring into the cell block from every entrance. "This way," chittered a voice. The Chrysali hovered nearby, gesturing with one of its 4 arms towards a maintenance hatch. The map showed a path through the service tunnels. Sarah hesitated for a split second. Every instinct screamed that this was wrong, that she was aiding and abetting a jailbreak. But the memory of her unjust imprisonment, of Kelix's smug face, steeled her resolve. She nodded to Grixthar and followed the Chrysali towards the hatch. The pyroclast joined them, its heat causing the air to shimmer. "I'll take point," it growled, its voice like grinding stones. "Anything in our way will burn." As they reached the hatch, Sarah felt a tap on her shoulder. She turned to see the morphine, now shaped into a vaguely humanoid form. In its gelatinous hand was the guard's stun baton. "You'll need this," the morphine burbled, its voice like bubbles rising through thick liquid. "We're not out of danger yet." Sarah took the weapon, feeling its reassuring weight. "Thanks," she said, then paused. "Why are you helping me? Why am I a part of this?" The morphine's body rippled in what might have been a shrug. "You're the key, Colonel Vega." "To what? We're not sure. But Kelix fears you, and that makes you valuable to us." Before Sarah could press for more information, the maintenance hatch burst open, melted from the other side by the pyroclast. Grixthar pushed through, its bulk barely fitting in the narrow tunnel beyond. "Move," the Vex car bellowed. "They're sealing off sections of the prison. We don't have much time." Sarah took one last look at the chaos of the cell block. Guards and inmates locked in combat, energy weapons flashing, the air thick with smoke and alien sounds of pain and rage. Then she turned and plunged into the darkness of the tunnel, her unlikely allies at her side. As they raced through the twisting passageways of Nexus 9's underbelly, Sarah's mind was in overdrive. She was no longer just an unjustly imprisoned soldier. She was now an active participant in a prison riot, fleeing alongside some of the most dangerous beings in the galaxy. But more than that, she was on the verge of uncovering something big. Kelix's fear, the hidden maps, the coordinated effort of the inmates, it all pointed to a conspiracy far larger than her own false imprisonment. Whatever lay ahead, Sarah knew one thing for certain. Her life would never be the same again. The riot wasn't just a bid for freedom. It was the first shot in a war she didn't yet understand. As they rounded a corner, a massive blast door loomed before them, the word "restricted" pulsing in angry red letters across its surface. "This is it," the Chrysali chittered excitedly. "Beyond this door lies the truth, and our freedom." Sarah gripped the stun baton tightly, her eyes fixed on the door. Whatever waited on the other side, she was ready to face it. The real battle was just beginning. The hidden threat. The massive blast door loomed before Sarah and her ragtag group of alien escapees, its surface pulsing with angry red warnings. The distant sounds of the riot echoed through the maintenance tunnels, a chaotic symphony of alarms, energy weapons, and alien cries. "How do we get through?" Sarah asked, eyeing the impenetrable barrier. The Chrysali fluttered forward, its compound eyes reflecting the door's red glow. "Leave that to me," it chittered, extending a delicate proboscis towards the door's control panel. As it made contact, the appendage split into dozens of hair-thin filaments that wormed their way into the panel circuitry. For a tense moment, nothing happened. Then, with a deep groan, the blast door began to slide open. "Impressive," Sarah muttered. The Chrysali's mandibles clicked in what might have been a smile. "The Chrysali aren't just known for our memories, Colonel. We're also quite adept at interfacing with technology." As the door ground open, revealing a dimly lit corridor beyond, Grixthar pushed to the front of the group. "I'll take point," the Vex car rumbled. "My carapace can withstand most energy weapons." Sarah nodded, falling in behind the massive alien. The pyroclast brought up the rear, its heat serving as both a deterrent to any pursuers and a comforting warmth in the chill of the restricted area. The corridor stretched before them, sterile and silent, Unlike the rest of Nexus 9, with its transparent cells and constant surveillance, this area felt hidden, secret. The walls were lined with strange, pulsing conduits, and occasionally they passed sealed doors marked with warning symbols Sarah didn't recognize. What is this place? Sarah wondered aloud. The morphine, its body now shaped into a more streamlined form for easier movement, rippled with unease. I've heard whispers, it burbled. Rumors among the inmates. They say Nexus 9 isn't just a prison. It's a laboratory. Sarah's blood ran cold. A laboratory. For what? Before the morphine could answer, Grixthar held up a hand, signaling for silence. Ahead, voices drifted from around a corner. Sarah gripped her stolen stun baton tightly, preparing for a confrontation. But the voices weren't those of guards. As they cautiously rounded the corner, Sarah saw two figures in lab coats huddled over a console, their backs to the escapees. One was clearly human, while the other was a species Sarah didn't recognize. Tall and spindly, with gray skin and an elongated head. The test subjects are showing remarkable adaptability, the alien scientist was saying. Particularly subject 937. The neural integration is progressing faster than we anticipated. Sarah's breath caught in her throat. 937. That was her inmate designation. The human scientist nodded, tapping at the console. Agreed. But we need to accelerate the process. The consortium is getting impatient. They want results, not progress reports. Before Sarah could process what she'd heard, Grixthar surged forward. In two massive strides, the Vex car was upon the scientists. With a sweep of its arms, it knocked them both unconscious before they could even cry out. "We need to move," Grixthar growled. "They'll be missed soon." But Sarah was already at the console, her eyes scanning the displays. What she saw made her stomach churn. Diagrams of alien physiologies, charts of neural patterns, lists of test subjects, including herself and every member of her escape party. "By the stars," the Chrysali whispered, hovering over her shoulder. "What have they been doing to us?" Sarah's mind raced, piecing together the fragments of information. "It's not just a prison," she said, her voice hollow. "It's a testing ground. They're trying to create something. Hybrid soldiers, maybe, combining the strengths of different species." The pyroclast's flames flickered with agitation. But why? And who is this consortium? Before anyone could answer, a new alarm blared. Different from the riot alarms, more urgent. Red emergency lights began to strobe, casting eerie shadows in the corridor. A computerized voice echoed through hidden speakers. "Warning. Containment breach in Sector Omega. All personnel evacuate immediately. Initiating quarantine protocols." The morphine's body rippled with fear. Sector Omega. I've heard that name in the deepest nightmares of the oldest inmates. Whatever's in there, it's not meant to see the light of day. As if in response to the morphine's words, a bone-chilling shriek echoed from deep within the facility. It was like nothing Sarah had ever heard before, a sound that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once, tearing at the fabric of reality itself. "We need to get out of here," Sarah said, her soldiers' instincts kicking in. Now. But as they turned to retrace their steps, they found their path blocked. The blast door they had come through was slowly grinding shut, part of the quarantine protocol. "No," Sarah shouted, sprinting towards the closing gap. But it was too late. With a final, ominous thud, the door sealed, trapping them in the restricted area. For a moment, silence reigned, broken only by the pulsing alarms and the distant, otherworldly shrieks that seemed to be getting closer. "What now, Colonel?" Grixthar asked, its usually imposing voice tinged with uncertainty. Sarah took a deep breath, forcing herself to think. They were trapped in an unknown section of the prison, with some unimaginable horror loose and heading their way. But they also had information now, crucial intelligence about the true nature of Nexus 9 and the experiments being conducted here. "We press on," she said firmly. Whatever's in Sector Omega, whatever they've been creating here, it's the key to everything. Why I was framed, why you were all brought here. We need to find out what it is. The chrysali's wings buzzed nervously. And if we encounter this thing, Sarah's grip tightened on her stun baton. Then we fight. Together. We're the most dangerous inmates in Nexus 9, remember. Whatever they've created, we can handle it. As if to challenge her words, another shriek tore through the air, closer this time. The very walls seemed to vibrate with its intensity. I hope you're right, Colonel. The pyroclast rumbled, its flames burning brighter in anticipation of the coming conflict. For all our sakes. With a shared look of determination, the unlikely allies set off deeper into the heart of Nexus 9's secret laboratories. Whatever horrors awaited them, whatever truths they would uncover, they would face it as one. As they ventured further into the unknown, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into something far bigger than a prison break. The experiments, the consortium, the mysterious entity from Sector Omega. It all pointed to a conspiracy that stretched far beyond the walls of Nexus 9. And somehow, she was at the center of it all. The group moved cautiously through the winding corridors, each turn bringing new wonders and horrors. They passed chambers filled with strange, pulsating organic matter, rooms where gravity seemed to twist and bend, and laboratories housing alien technologies beyond Sarah's comprehension. Look, the chrysali chittered, pointing with one of its delicate limbs. Ahead, a massive set of doors loomed, emblazoned with the Greek letter O Sector Omega. As they approached, the doors slid open with a hiss of escaping air. Beyond lay darkness, broken only by flashes of strange, otherworldly light. Whatever answers we seek, Sarah said, her voice steady despite the fear coursing through her. They're in there. Grixthar moved to her side, its massive form a comforting presence. We're with you, Colonel. To whatever end. With a nod of acknowledgement to her alien comrades, Sarah stepped forward into the unknown. As the darkness of Sector Omega enveloped them, she couldn't shake the feeling that they were about to uncover a truth that would shake the very foundations of the galaxy. The doors slid shut behind them with a final ominous thud. There was no going back now. Whatever lay ahead, be it salvation or damnation, they would face it together. Breakout. The darkness of Sector Omega enveloped Sarah and her alien companions like a living thing, pulsing with an otherworldly energy. The air was thick with an acrid metallic scent that made Sarah's eyes water. Only the soft glow of the pyroclast's smoldering body provided any illumination. Stay close, Sarah whispered, her knuckles white around the grip of her stun baton. We don't know what we're dealing with here. As if in response to her words, a low, undulating moan echoed through the chamber. It was a sound that seemed to bypass the ears entirely, resonating directly in their minds. The morphine shuddered, its gelatinous body rippling with distress. It's in pain, the morphine burbled. So much pain and anger. Suddenly, the chamber was bathed in a sickly green light. Floating tanks lined the walls, filled with a viscous fluid. Inside each tank was something. Sarah's mind recoiled at the sight. They were amalgamations of different species, twisted and fused together in ways that defied nature. By the void, Grixthar rumbled, all 6 of its arms tensing. What have they done? The chrysali fluttered to one of the control panels, its proboscis interfacing with the alien technology. These are failed experiments. It chittered, its usually melodious voice tinged with horror. Attempts to create the perfect hybrid soldier. But they're unstable, their minds fractured. Sarah's blood ran cold as she remembered the scientist's words. Subject 937. Her, showing remarkable adaptability. Was this what they had planned for her? A crash from the far end of the chamber snapped her back to the present. Something was moving in the shadows, something big. Prepare yourselves, Sarah ordered, falling into a defensive stance. The creature that emerged from the darkness defied description. It was as if someone had taken parts from a dozen different species and fused them together with no regard for biology or sanity. Multiple limbs, some scaled, some furred, others metallic, propelled its massive bulk forward. Its head was a nightmare of eyes and mouths, all moving independently. But what struck Sarah most were its eyes. Not the myriad alien ones, but a pair of human eyes, filled with pain and confusion. "It's the successful experiment," the chrysalis whispered in horror, "the one that escaped containment." The creature let out another psychic moan, and Sarah felt a wave of emotions wash over her: fear, anger, and an overwhelming desire for freedom. "We can't fight this," Sarah realized aloud. "It's not our enemy. It's a victim, just like us." Grixthar turned its massive head towards her. "What do you propose, Colonel?" Sarah took a deep breath, an insane plan forming in her mind. "We take it with us. We break out together." For a moment, her alien companions stared at her in disbelief. Then, slowly, they nodded in agreement. Sarah took a cautious step towards the hybrid creature. "We're not here to hurt you," she said softly, projecting thoughts of calm and alliance. "We want to escape too. Will you help us?" The creature's many eyes focused on her, and for a moment, Sarah feared she had made a terrible mistake. Then, slowly, it lowered its bulk in what might have been a nod. "All right," Sarah said, a grim smile on her face. "Let's get out of here." What followed was a breakout unlike any in the history of Nexus 9. The hybrid creature's immense strength and array of alien abilities made short work of any obstacles in their path. Sarah and her team provided strategy and direction, guiding their new ally through the labyrinthine corridors of the prison. Alarms blared and guards swarmed, but they were no match for the combined might of the galaxy's most dangerous inmates and the result of Nexus 9's twisted experiments. As they fought their way through the prison, Sarah's mind raced. The existence of this hybrid creature, the experiments, the consortium, it all pointed to a conspiracy that reached far beyond a simple prison. Someone out there was playing a very dangerous game with the future of the galaxy. They burst into the main hangar bay, alarms screaming and energy blasts sizzling past them. Ahead, a sleek prison transport ship sat on the landing pad, its engines already warming up. "There's our ticket out of here," Sarah shouted over the chaos. As they sprinted for the ship, a familiar figure stepped into their path. Warden Kellex, his avian features twisted with rage, leveled a massive energy cannon at them. "You've ruined everything, Vega," he screeched. "Do you have any idea what you've done?" Sarah didn't break stride. "I'm stopping whatever sick game you and your consortium are playing, Kellex." The warden's finger tightened on the trigger, but before he could fire, a massive shape loomed over him. The hybrid creature, sensing the threat, had moved with impossible speed. With a sweep of one of its many arms, it sent Kellex flying across the hangar. "Go," Sarah yelled to her companions. "Get to the ship." As the others raced up the boarding ramp, Sarah paused, turning back to the hybrid creature. It stood there, a mountain of mismatched flesh and alien technology, its human eyes fixed on her. "Come with us," Sarah said softly, extending her hand. "You deserve freedom too." For a moment, the creature hesitated. Then, with surprising gentleness, it took her hand in one of its massive appendages. Together, they boarded the ship just as the hangar doors began to close. The chrysalis was already at the controls, its proboscis interfaced with the ship's systems. "Hang on," the insectoid alien chittered. "This might get rough." The ship lurched, then shot forward, squeezing through the narrowing gap of the hangar doors. They burst into the star-filled void of space, leaving the asteroid prison behind. As the adrenaline of their escape began to fade, Sarah looked around at her unlikely crew. A Vexcar warrior, a pyroclast, a Morphean, a chrysalis, and a hybrid creature born of mad science, and her, a disgraced human colonel. "We did it," she breathed. "We're free." But even as she said the words, Sarah knew their journey was far from over. They had uncovered a conspiracy that threatened the entire galaxy, and somehow she was at the center of it all. The hybrid creature moved to her side, its human eyes meeting hers. In that moment, Sarah understood. They were connected, she and this being. Whatever the consortium had planned, it involved both of them. Set a course for the nearest neutral space station, Sarah ordered the Chrysalis. We need to regroup, gather supplies. And then what, Colonel? Grixthar asked, its voice rumbling with anticipation. Sarah's eyes hardened with determination. Then we find out who's behind all this, and we stop them. As the stolen prison ship accelerated to light speed, Sarah couldn't help but feel a mix of fear and excitement. They were fugitives now, hunted by both the law and the mysterious consortium. But they were also the only ones who knew the truth about what was happening in places like Nexus 9. The fate of the galaxy might well rest in their hands. And Sarah Vega, false traitor and accidental leader of the most dangerous crew in the universe, was ready for the challenge. The stars streaked by outside the view screen, a dazzling display of cosmic beauty. But Sarah's mind was already racing ahead, planning their next move. Whatever lay ahead, whatever forces were arrayed against them, she knew one thing for certain. The real battle was just beginning. The greater conflict. The stolen prison transport ship dropped out of hyperspace with a shudder, the swirling vortex of faster-than-light travel giving way to a field of stars. Ahead loomed Freeport Omega, a massive space station that served as a haven for those operating in the gray areas of galactic law. Sarah Vega stood at the view screen, her unlikely crew gathered around her. The Vexcar, Grixthar, its massive form dominating the cramped bridge. The Pyroclast, its heat causing the air to shimmer. The Morphean, its gelatinous body rippling with anticipation. The Chrysalis, its delicate wings fluttering as it interfaced with the ship's systems. And the hybrid creature, a testament to the horrors they had escaped, its human eyes fixed on the approaching station. This is where we start finding answers, Sarah said, her voice firm with resolve. Whatever this consortium is, whatever they're planning with their hybrid experiments, Freeport Omega is our best bet for information. As they docked with the station, Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they were walking into the nexus of something far larger than they could imagine. The breakout from Nexus 9 wasn't the end of their journey, it was just the beginning. The corridors of Freeport Omega were a riot of alien life, beings from across the galaxy mingling in a cacophony of languages and scents. Sarah and her crew drew curious and fearful glances as they made their way through the crowded walkways. It wasn't every day that such a diverse and dangerous group moved with such purpose. Their destination was the heart of Freeport Omega's black market, the Data Bazaar. If there was information to be had about the consortium and their experiments, it would be here. As they entered the dimly lit hall of holographic displays and shady information brokers, a hush fell over the crowd. Sarah approached a Salaxian data merchant, its tentacles writhing with excitement at the prospect of a sale. "We need everything you have on the consortium," Sarah said, her voice low but authoritative. Specifically, their involvement with hybrid experiments and a prison called Nexus 9. The Salaxians' eyes widened, all four of them darting nervously. That's dangerous information, human. The kind that gets people killed. Grixthar stepped forward, its massive form casting a shadow over the merchant. "We've faced death already. Now, we seek truth." Whether it was Grixthar's intimidating presence or the glint of determination in Sarah's eyes, the Salaxian relented. Its tentacles danced over a series of holographic controls, and a data crystal materialized before them. "Everything I have is on there," the merchant whispered. "But be warned, this goes deeper than you can imagine." As Sarah reached for the crystal, chaos erupted in the bazaar. Energy blasts sizzled through the air, and a squad of heavily armed mercenaries poured into the hall. "There they are," a gruff voice shouted. "Take them down." Sarah and her crew scattered, taking cover behind market stalls and data terminals. The hybrid creature let out a psychic roar that sent several mercenaries reeling, clutching their heads in pain. Chrysalis, Sarah shouted over the din of battle. Can you access the station's systems? The insectoid alien's proboscis was already interfacing with a nearby terminal. Working on it, Colonel. As Grixthar and the pyroclast engaged the mercenaries in close combat, Sarah's mind raced. Who had found them so quickly? The prison authorities? Or was it the consortium itself? Suddenly, the lights in the bazaar flickered, and Sarah's stolen comm unit crackled to life. A familiar voice, one that sent a chill down her spine, echoed through the device. Colonel Vega, the smooth, cultured tones of Director Ellis, the man who had framed her and sent her to Nexus 9, filled the air. I must admit, I'm impressed. You've caused us quite a bit of trouble. Sarah's eyes narrowed as she fired her stolen weapon at an approaching mercenary. Ellis, I should have known you were involved in this. The director's laugh was cold and mirthless. Involved? My dear Colonel, I am the consortium. Everything that happened at Nexus 9, every experiment, every hybrid creation, it was all under my direction. Why? Sarah demanded, ducking as an energy blast scorched the wall above her head. What are you trying to achieve? The future, Colonel. A future where humanity isn't just a bit player on the galactic stage, but the dominant force. Our hybrid soldiers will be unstoppable, with all the strengths of a dozen species and none of their weaknesses. Sarah's blood ran cold as the implications set in. You're trying to start a war. Not start, Colonel. Win. A war that will reshape the galaxy with humanity at its head. And you, my dear, were to be the crowning achievement. The perfect fusion of human intellect and alien physicality. As Alice spoke, Sarah locked eyes with the hybrid creature across the chaotic battlefield of the bazaar. In that moment, she understood. The creature wasn't just a successful experiment, it was a prototype. For her. It's not too late, Colonel. Alice continued, his voice silky smooth. Join us. Be part of the new order we're creating. Sarah's grip tightened on her weapon, her resolve hardening. Never, she spat. Your new order is built on suffering and cruelty. We'll stop you, Alice. Whatever it takes. The director's sigh crackled through the comm unit. Pity. You could have been magnificent. Kill them all, he ordered his mercenaries. But even as the mercenaries closed in, the tide of battle shifted. The Chrysalis had succeeded in its task, and suddenly the station's security systems came online, targeting the intruders. Time to go, Sarah shouted to her crew. They fought their way to the docking bay, a hybrid creature clearing a path with its immense strength and alien abilities. As they reached their ship, Sarah paused, turning to face the chaos they were leaving behind. She held up the data crystal, a grim smile on her face. We have what we came for, she said. And more importantly, we know who we're fighting now. The ship blasted away from Freeport Omega, alarms blaring in their wake. As the stars streaked into lines of light, signaling their jump to hyperspace, Sarah gathered her crew. Alice and his consortium are planning to reshape the galaxy through force, she said, her voice steady despite the weight of the revelation. They're creating hybrid soldiers, weapons that could tip the balance of power. We're the only ones who know the truth, the only ones who can stop them. Grixthar's multiple eyes blinked in unison. You propose we wage war against this consortium. Sarah nodded. Not just wage war. We need to expose them, bring their plans to light. There are good people in the galactic government, in the military. They'll help us if they know the truth. The pyroclast's flames flickered with determination. We're with you, Colonel. To whatever end. As her unlikely crew voiced their agreement, Sarah felt a surge of hope. They were outlaws, fugitives, but they were also probably the galaxy's best chance at stopping Alice and his twisted vision of the future. The hybrid creature moved to her side, its human eyes meeting hers. In them, Sarah saw not just pain and confusion, but a fierce intelligence and an unwavering loyalty. Whatever Alice had intended this being to be, it had chosen its own path, just as she had. Set a course for the outer rim, Sarah ordered the Chrysalis. We need to gather allies, build our strength. The road ahead won't be easy, but together, we can do this. As the ship hurtled through hyperspace, Sarah Vega, once a decorated colonel, now a galactic fugitive, felt a sense of purpose she hadn't experienced since before her false imprisonment. The consortium thought they were creating the future, but Sarah and her crew, this band of misfits and monsters, they were the true face of what was to come. A future where species worked together, where strength came from unity, not domination. The battle for the galaxy's soul had begun, and Sarah Vega was ready to lead the charge. As the stolen ship disappeared into the depths of space, a new legend was born. The tale of the Nexus 9 escapees, a crew of the most dangerous beings in the galaxy, united against a common foe. Their journey was just beginning, but already songs were being sung in the shadowy corners of distant worlds, whispers of hope spreading among the oppressed and the downtrodden. The consortium had wanted to create the perfect weapons. Instead, they had forged their own destruction. And at the head of this rebellion stood Sarah Vega, the woman who had gone into Nexus 9 as a prisoner and emerged as the galaxy's last, best hope for freedom. The stars beckoned, and the greatest adventure in galactic history was about to unfold.